In the middle of the show, Michael Jackson dropped the microphone and walked to the edge of the stage. The audience was in shock. 80,000 people had come to witness the king of pop. They expected perfection, spectacle, the magic that only Michael Jackson could deliver. But what happened that night in Munich, 1997, was something no one could have prepared for. The music stopped. The dancers froze. And Michael Jackson, the man who never broke character, stood at the edge of the stage with tears streaming down his face. This is the story of 2 minutes that changed everything. 2 minutes that revealed the human behind the legend. 2 minutes that proved sometimes the most powerful performance is the one where you stop performing. But before we understand why Michael Jackson froze that night, we need to go back 6 hours earlier. To a moment backstage that would set everything in motion. The History World Tour was at its peak. City after city, sold-out arenas, millions of fans. Michael Jackson had perfected the art of spectacle. Every movement choreographed, every note rehearsed, every second timed to precision. His team had transformed concert performance into something closer to military operation. There was no room for error, no space for improvisation. Backstage at Olympic Stadium in Munich, the pre-show routine was underway. Sound checks, costume adjustments, final briefings. Michael was in his dressing room, going through vocal warm-ups, when his tour manager knocked on the door. "Michael, there's someone here. A mother and her daughter. They've been waiting outside since morning." Michael had heard this countless times. Fans waiting, hoping for a glimpse, a signature, a moment. His security team usually handled these situations with practiced efficiency. But something in the tour manager's voice was different. Hesitant. Careful. "The girl is sick, Michael. Terminal. The doctors gave her weeks. Her last wish was to meet you." Michael looked up from his mirror. His expression changed in a way that people who worked with him recognized. The performer disappeared. Something deeper emerged. "Bring them in." The girl's name was Emma. She was 9 years old. Leukemia had stolen her hair, her energy, her childhood. But when she walked into that dressing room, supported by her mother, her eyes lit up with a light that illness couldn't extinguish. Michael knelt down to her level. No cameras. No publicists. No performance. Just a man and a child. They talked for 20 minutes. About music, about dreams, about her drawings. Emma had brought him a picture she'd made, a crayon drawing of Michael on stage surrounded by stars. He held it like it was the most precious thing in the world. "Will you sing Heal the World tonight?" Emma asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "I'll sing it for you," Michael said. "Just for you." As they left, Emma's mother pressed something into Michael's hand. A small toy rabbit, worn from years of being held. "She wants you to keep it," the mother said, tears in her eyes. "She says it brings good luck." Michael closed his fingers around the rabbit. He didn't speak. He couldn't. 45 minutes later, the show began. But Michael Jackson carried something with him onto that stage that wasn't in the script. A weight that no choreography could account for. The performance was flawless, as always. Billie Jean. Beat It. Black or White. The crowd roared with every move, every note. Michael was in complete control, delivering exactly what they'd paid to see. The machine was working perfectly. Then came the moment for Heal the World. As the opening notes played, Michael walked to center stage. The audience began to sway, lighters flickering in the darkness like stars. This was the emotional centerpiece of the show, the moment designed for maximum impact. Michael began to sing. His voice filled the stadium, carrying the words that had moved millions. The dancers took their positions. The lights created the perfect atmosphere. Everything was going according to plan. And then Michael saw her. Row 7, Section B. Emma was there, held up by her mother so she could see. Even from the stage, Michael could see her face, illuminated by the spotlight. She was crying. Not from sadness. From joy. Pure, unfiltered joy. Michael Jackson stopped singing mid-verse. The music continued for 2 more bars before the band realized something was wrong. Then they stopped too. The entire stadium fell into a silence so complete you could hear the wind. Subscribe now and drop a comment, because what happens next became one of the most extraordinary moments in live performance history. For a full 5 seconds, nobody moved. 80,000 people collectively held their breath. The dancers looked at each other, confused. The technical crew scrambled, checking equipment, thinking something had malfunctioned. Michael's manager started toward the stage, panic rising. But Michael wasn't frozen because of technical failure. He was frozen because something had broken inside him. The wall between performer and person had cracked. He stood there, microphone hanging at his side, tears visible on his face under the spotlight. Then he did something no one expected. He walked off the main stage platform and down the stairs that led directly into the audience. Security immediately moved to intercept, but Michael waved them back. He walked through the barrier, past the front row, into Section B. The crowd parted like water, too shocked to do anything but watch. He found Emma. Her mother's eyes went wide as Michael Jackson, in full performance costume, stopped in front of them. He knelt down again, just as he had backstage, and this time he did something he never did during performances. He took off his signature fedora and placed it gently on Emma's head. It was too big, sliding down over her eyes. She pushed it up, laughing and crying at the same time. Michael whispered something to her. Nobody in the stadium could hear what he said. It was just for her. Then he stood, took her hand, and began walking back toward the stage. The silence broke. The entire stadium erupted. Not the usual concert cheering. Something different. Deeper. People were crying. Strangers were hugging strangers. The moment had transcended entertainment, and become something else entirely. Michael lifted Emma onto the stage. The spotlight found them both. He picked up the microphone, and with Emma standing beside him, her hand in his, he began to sing again. Heal the world, make it a better place, for you and for me and the entire human race. But this time, his voice cracked. The technical perfection was gone. What remained was something more powerful. Raw emotion. Real connection. Truth. The stadium didn't just watch anymore. They became part of it. 80,000 voices joined in, singing with Michael and Emma. The planned performance had died, but something greater had been born. Emma stayed on stage for the entire song. Michael never let go of her hand. When it ended, he knelt down one more time, whispered something else that made her smile, and then security gently escorted her and her mother backstage. Michael stood alone at center stage. The next song was supposed to start immediately. The cue came and went. He just stood there, looking out at the audience, the small toy rabbit visible in his hand. Then he spoke, which he rarely did during concerts. Thank you for understanding that sometimes we need to remember what all of this is really about. It's not about the show. It's about the souls we touch. It's about the love we share. That little girl taught me more in 5 minutes than I've learned in 30 years of performing. The show continued, but everyone knew they'd witnessed something that couldn't be rehearsed or replicated. A moment where the machinery of spectacle had stopped, and humanity had broken through. Share this story and hit subscribe, because what happened next proves that some moments last far longer than 2 minutes. Emma passed away 3 weeks later. At her funeral, her mother spoke about that night in Munich. About how Emma had played the recording of that performance every single day. About how she'd worn Michael's fedora even in the hospital. About how, in her final hours, she'd asked her mother to play Heal the World one more time. Michael sent flowers. He sent a personal letter. But he also did something else that Emma's family didn't discover until months later. He'd had that crayon drawing she gave him framed and hung in his home studio at Neverland Ranch. Visitors who saw it would ask about the childlike artwork surrounded by gold records and awards. Michael would tell them it was more valuable than any of them. The toy rabbit she'd given him traveled with him for the rest of the history tour. It sat on his dressing room table at every show. His staff knew never to move it or pack it with other items. It had its own case. But the real legacy of those 2 minutes wasn't in objects or memories. It was in what changed in Michael Jackson's performances going forward. After Munich, he started breaking protocol regularly. Not for spectacle. For connection. In Paris, he stopped mid-concert to help a fan who'd fainted. In Seoul, he invited a deaf child onto the stage and signed to her while singing. In Sao Paulo, he dedicated an entire show to a group of children from an orphanage who'd been given front-row seats. His production team protested. Every deviation from the plan created logistical nightmares, insurance issues, security concerns. But Michael was unmovable. "The show is whatever connects us," he'd say. "Everything else is just noise." The tour manager who'd brought Emma backstage that day later said that Munich was a turning point. Before that night, Michael was performing for the world. After that night, Michael was performing with the world. He finally understood that his gift wasn't in being perfect. It was in being present. Years later, when journalists asked Michael about his most memorable performance, they expected him to cite Madison Square Garden or Wembley Stadium, the massive spectacles that broke records and defined eras. Instead, he talked about a 9-year-old girl in Munich. About how she reminded him why he'd started singing in the first place. About how 2 minutes of broken silence had taught him more about music than decades of success. The toy rabbit is still there, according to those who visited Neverland. In a glass case now, alongside the fedora he'd placed on Emma's head. A museum curator once suggested they belonged in a proper exhibition. Michael refused. "They're not artifacts," he said. "They're prayers." Emma's mother still has the recording of that night. She's shared it with grief counselors, with other parents of terminally ill children, with anyone who needs to remember that sometimes the most extraordinary moments come from the most painful ones. The video has circulated online, bootlegged and reposted, but always with the same comments. "This is what real humanity looks like. This is why we loved him. This is the moment I understood that fame means nothing if you forget what it's for." In the end, Michael Jackson froze on stage not because he forgot his lines or lost his nerve. He froze because he remembered something more important than any performance, that we're all human, all fragile, all searching for connection. That 2 minutes of authentic presence can matter more than 2 hours of perfect execution. The show must go on, they say. But sometimes the show must stop. Sometimes the music must pause. Sometimes the performer must step down from the stage and remind us that beneath the spectacle, beneath the fame, beneath the legend, there's just a person trying to make someone else feel less alone. That's what became legendary. Not because Michael Jackson was superhuman, but because in that moment, he was perfectly, beautifully, courageously human. And that little toy rabbit, sitting in its case at Neverland, still carries Emma's wish. That love and connection are the real magic. That healing the world starts with healing a single soul. That sometimes the greatest performances are the ones where we stop performing and simply be. 2 minutes. 80,000 witnesses. One little girl. One moment of perfect humanity. That's the legend. Michael Jackson taught us that night that greatness isn't measured in ticket sales or chart positions. It's measured in the tears of a dying child who got to feel like she mattered. In the silence of a stadium full of strangers who remembered what it means to be human. In a toy rabbit that crossed from one soul to another and changed everything. The king of pop didn't become a legend because he never broke character. He became a legend because he did. Because when it mattered most, he chose love over performance. Connection over perfection. A little girl over 80,000 fans. Some say those were the longest 2 minutes in concert history. Emma's mother says they were the shortest 2 minutes of her daughter's life. Both are right. That's what became legendary.